The lights in the great meeting hall dimmed as Veltara stepped forward. Her blue skin seemed to glow in the soft light as she looked at the hundreds of alien faces staring back at her. Each creature was different. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like walking trees. But they all had one thing in common today. They were here to decide if humans should live or die. Veltara pressed a button on her hand device. A giant screen lit up behind her, showing numbers and charts that made the alien audience gasp and whisper to each other. The numbers were not good. "Friends of the Galactic Council," Veltara said, her voice carrying across the silent hall. "I bring bad news from the planet called Earth. The humans living there are dying. Their world is dying too." She pointed at the screen. Red numbers flashed like warning signs. "Look at these facts. 95% of all animals and plants on Earth are now dead. The air is full of poison. The water in their oceans is turning to acid. The protective layer around their planet is breaking apart. Soon, deadly light from their sun will kill everything left alive." An alien with 6 arms raised one of them. His name was Keth Morn, and he spoke for the rich Nexari people. "How long do they have?" he asked in a cold voice. 6 months, Veltara answered. "Maybe less." The hall erupted in noise. Aliens talked to each other in dozens of different languages. Some seemed sad, others seemed worried, but most just seemed to accept the news like it was normal. In the front row, a single human sat alone. His name was Kim Tae-woo, and he was the only human allowed to speak for his entire species in this place. His black hair was going gray, and his face looked tired from many sleepless nights. He had been fighting for his people for months, but he could see in the alien's eyes that he was losing. Kim Tae-woo stood up slowly. The noise in the hall died down as everyone turned to look at him. He was so much smaller than most of the aliens around him, but he held his head high. "Please," he said, his voice shaking a little. "My people need help. We have 200 million humans left alive. They live in underground cities and protected domes. We can save them if you help us move them to other worlds. We can work. We can learn. We just need a chance." Kethmorn laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Move 200 million creatures? Do you know how much that would cost? 847 billion credits. That is more money than most worlds make, in 100 years. But they will all die if we do nothing," Kim Tae-woo said, his voice getting stronger. "Every single one of them. Children, old people, everyone." "That is how nature works," said another alien, this one looking like a giant bird. "Weak species die. Strong species live. Your kind was not strong enough to take care of your world. Now you must face the results." Veltara nodded sadly. "The Council has looked at this problem from every angle. We have studied your people for many years. Humans are interesting. You fight hard, and you never give up easily. But fighting is not enough this time. Your world is too damaged. Even if we spent all that money to move your people, where would they go? Most worlds cannot support human life. The few that can are already full." "We could build new cities," Kim Tae-woo said desperately. "Humans are good at building things. We could live underground or in space stations. We just need time and help." An alien that looked like a walking crystal spoke up. "Time is what you do not have. Our scientists have run the numbers 1,000 times. Earth's air will become completely poisonous in 4 months. The radiation from your sun will cook the surface in 6 months. There is no way to fix these problems fast enough." "We could try," Kim Tae-woo whispered. "We could waste resources," Kethmorn corrected him. "The Council has other species to think about. The Zalani people need help with their food shortage. The Corvin worlds are fighting a disease that could spread to other planets. The Hive Collective is dealing with civil war. All of these problems can be fixed with the money it would take to maybe save some humans." Veltara looked at Kim Tae-woo with something that might have been pity. "Your species has given much to the galaxy. Your music, your art, your stories. They have touched many hearts. Your scientists have made discoveries that helped everyone. Your soldiers fought bravely in the border wars. But kindness cannot change the laws of physics. Money cannot fix a dying world in 6 months." The vote was quick. One by one, Each species voted. The Ashanti Collective voted no. The Eternal Dominion voted no. The Nexari Empire voted no. Even the Gentle Harmony Federation, known for helping others, voted no with tears in their eyes. The decision is final, Veltara announced. The species known as humans is classified as terminal, non-viable for intervention. No council resources will be spent on evacuation or aid. We are sorry. Kim Tae-woo stood in the silent hall as aliens began to leave. Some looked at him as they passed. A few even touched his shoulder gently. But none of them changed their votes. Veltara was the last to approach him. I am truly sorry, she said quietly. If there was any way. There is always a way. Kim, Tae-woo said, looking up at her with eyes that burned with something she did not recognize. Humans always find a way. Not this time, she said softly. Sometimes, even fighting spirit is not enough. Kim Tae-woo walked to his small ship alone. As he prepared to return to Earth, he thought about the message he would have to send to his people. The underground cities beneath Old Seoul, the dome cities in the Australian desert, the ice colonies in Siberia, all the places where humans still lived and hoped and dreamed. He would have to tell them that the galaxy had given up on them, that they were alone, that in 6 months, everything they had ever built or loved would be dead. As his ship left the space station, Kim Tae-woo began recording his message. But as he spoke, something strange happened. Instead of despair, he felt anger. Instead of surrender, he felt defiance. My fellow humans, he said to the camera. The aliens think we are going to die. They think we are too weak to save ourselves. They think our story ends here. He paused, and for the first time in months, he smiled. Let's prove them wrong. The underground city beneath Seoul had never been so quiet. 50,000 people packed into the great meeting hall, sitting on floors, hanging from walkways, pressed against walls. Everyone wanted to hear what Kim Tae-woo had brought back from the stars. Director Park Sun-ho stood at the center of the hall. His voice echoed through speakers that carried his words to every corner of the underground city. Behind him, a massive screen showed the space station where the Galactic Council met, where they had decided humanity's fate. The message from our representative is clear, Park Sun-ho said. His voice was calm, but his hands shook as he held the datapad. The Galactic Council has classified us as terminal, non-viable for intervention. They will not help us. They expect us to die quietly in the next 6 months. The silence that followed was heavy and thick. Children held their parents' hands tighter. Old people closed their eyes and sighed. Young adults stared at the floor. Everyone knew this moment would come, but hearing it still felt like a punch to the stomach. The Council believes our world cannot be saved, Park Sun-ho continued. They say the damage is too great. The cost is too high, the time is too short. They have written us off as a failed species. A woman in the crowd started crying. Then another. Soon, quiet sobs could be heard throughout the hall. This was the end, then. Everything they had fought for, everything they had built, everything they had hoped for, it was all going to die with them. But then something unexpected happened. Lee Bo-ram stood up. She was small and thin, with dirt under her fingernails from working in the underground farms. Her clothes were patched and old. She did not look like someone who could change the world. But when she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the hall. No, she said. The crying stopped. Everyone turned to look at her. I said no. Lee Bo-ram repeated louder this time. I do not accept this. The aliens think we are going to die? Fine. Let them think that. But I am not going to sit here and wait for death to come find me. An old man near her frowned. What choice do we have, child? The world is dying. The air is poison, the water is acid. Even if we could fix it, we do not have the tools or the time. Then we make the tools, Lee Bo-ram shot back. We find the time. We do what humans have always done when someone tells us something is impossible. We proved them wrong. Park Sun-ho stared at her. The greatest minds in the galaxy have studied our situation. They have computers that can think faster than 1,000,000 human brains. They say it cannot be done. The greatest minds in the galaxy, Lee Bo-ram said with a bitter laugh, gave up without trying. They looked at numbers on screens and decided we were not worth the effort. But they do not know what it feels like to be human. They do not know what we can do when we have nothing left to lose. Murmurs began spreading through the crowd. People sat up straighter. Eyes that had been dull with despair began to brighten with something else. Choi Min-soo, an engineer from the Australian Dome cities, stood up next. His voice came through the communication system that connected all the human settlements. Lee, Bo-ram is right. I have been studying the atmospheric processors the aliens use on their colony worlds. We have dozens of crashed alien ships in the desert. If we strip them for parts, the radiation shielding alone could protect thousands of people, added Dr. Yoon Hae-jin from the Siberian ice colonies. Her image appeared on the screen, speaking from thousands of kilometers away. And I have been working with extremophile, bacteria that can survive in conditions that would kill normal life. If we can modify them to process toxins. Wait, Park Sun-ho said, holding up his hands. You are talking about projects that would take years. We have months. Then we work faster, said Captain Nam Ji-woo, who led the salvage teams that went into the dead cities to collect supplies. We work longer. We work harder than any species in the galaxy has ever worked before. The mood in the hall was changing. The despair was melting away, replaced by something the aliens would not have recognized. It was not hope exactly. It was something fiercer, something angrier, something that refused to accept defeat. Lee Bo-ram climbed onto a chair so everyone could see her better. Listen to me, all of you. The aliens think they know us. They think we are just another species that will lie down and die when things get hard. But they have never seen humans with their backs against the wall. They have never seen what we become when someone tells us we cannot survive. We are going to save ourselves, she continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. We are going to fix our world. We are going to prove that humanity does not go quietly into the dark. And when we do, when we are still here after their 6 months are up, we are going to show the galaxy what it means to give up on the human race. The crowd erupted, not in cheers, but in something deeper. It was the sound of a species deciding to fight for its life. It was the sound of 200 million people refusing to accept extinction. Within hours, the response began. Sleep schedules were cut to 4 hours. Every person who could work was put to a task. Children as young as 10 learned to sort salvage materials. People over 80 taught engineering classes to teenagers. The distinction between scientists, workers, and leaders disappeared. There was only the work and the goal, and the burning need to prove the galaxy wrong. In the Australian domes, Choi Min-soo led teams into the dangerous ruins of the old cities. They braved radiation and toxic air to strip components from crashed alien ships. Mining equipment that had been abandoned was converted into massive atmospheric processors. The work was dangerous. People died almost every day. But for every person who fell, 2 more stepped forward to take their place. In Siberia, Dr. Yoon Hae-jin worked with teams of modified bacteria that could eat toxins and produce clean air. They built massive bioreactors in the ice using geothermal energy to power systems that could clean the atmosphere 1 breath at a time. The cold was bitter, the work was backbreaking, but no one complained. Complaining was a luxury they could not afford. In the Seoul Underground, Park Sun-ho found himself leading a coordination effort unlike anything in human history. Resources were shared with mathematical precision. Food, water, tools, and knowledge flowed between settlements with an efficiency that amazed even him. People gave up their own rations to feed the workers. Families sent their children to work in other settlements where they were needed most. But perhaps the strangest thing was what happened to the human spirit itself. Instead of breaking under the pressure, people seemed to grow stronger. They worked 18-hour days without complaint. They volunteered for dangerous missions with smiles on their faces. They sang while they worked in the toxic air and the bitter cold. In orbit around Earth, Alien observation satellites recorded everything. The data was sent to research stations throughout the galaxy, where xenopsychologists studied human behavior. With growing confusion, Dr. Zil-Andra, one of the galaxy's leading experts on extinction psychology, published her first report 3 weeks after the Council's decision. Subject species displaying anomalous behavior patterns, she wrote. Expected responses to extinction classification include social breakdown, resource hoarding, panic, despair, and rapid population decline due to suicide and violence. Observed responses include increased cooperation, resource sharing, productivity, increases of 300–400%, and apparent psychological strengthening under pressure. She paused in her writing, staring at the data. According to every model the galaxy had, humans should be collapsing into chaos by now. Instead, they seem to be getting stronger. Further observation required, she concluded. Human extinction. Response does not match any known psychological patterns. On Earth, the work continued. Day by day, the atmospheric processors grew larger. The bioreactors spread wider. The salvage operations brought back more alien technology. And slowly, impossibly, the readings began to change. Not much. Not yet. But the air was getting cleaner. The water was getting purer. The radiation levels were dropping. It was not enough to save them. Not yet. But it was something the aliens had said was impossible. It was progress. And for humans, progress was hope. And hope was the most dangerous thing in the universe. Monitoring specialist Cradoon stared at his screens in confusion. He had been watching Earth for 6 months, waiting for the final readings that would confirm human extinction. The Galactic Council was already making plans to strip mine the dead planet for rare metals. Mining companies were bidding on excavation rights. Everything was ready, except the humans were not dead. Cradoon checked his instruments for the 5th time that day. The atmospheric readings made no sense. 6 months ago, Earth's air had been 92% toxic. According to his latest scans, it was down to 78%. That was impossible. Planets did not heal themselves, especially not planets as damaged as Earth. He tried to contact his supervisor, but the communication channel was busy. Every alien scientist in the sector was trying to report the same impossible data. Earth should have been a dead rock by now. Instead, it was getting better. Chief Analyst Dugan received the flood of confused reports with growing alarm. As head of the Galactic Survey Division, he had overseen the extinction of 43 species. He knew how extinction worked. Dying worlds got worse, not better. Dying species fought among themselves for the last resources. They did not cooperate. They did not build things. They certainly did not improve their planetary conditions. Send Investigation Team Prime, Dugan ordered. Full scientific complement. I want to know what is happening on that planet. The investigation ship arrived at Earth 3 days later. Captain Velkoth had been exploring dead worlds for 50 years. She had seen the ruins of 100 civilizations. She knew what extinction looked like, so when her sensors showed massive industrial activity on Earth's surface, she assumed her instruments were malfunctioning. Run full diagnostics on all sensors, she ordered her crew. These readings cannot be correct. But the diagnostics came back clean. The sensors were working perfectly, which meant the readings were real. Earth was not dead. It was very much alive. Floating cities dotted the toxic oceans, their massive filtration systems pulling poison from the water and pumping out clean steam. Atmospheric processors the size of mountains pulled carbon and toxins from the air, converting them into harmless gases. Underground facilities stretched for hundreds of kilometers, growing food in soil that should have been too contaminated to support life. And everywhere, there were humans. They moved across the surface in protective suits, building new structures, expanding the clean zones, planting modified crops that could grow in the damaged soil. They worked in the floating cities, maintaining the massive machines that cleaned the oceans. They operated the atmospheric processors with a precision that impressed even the aliens watching from space. "This is impossible," breathed Dr. Thrennick, the ship's xenobiologist. Humans cannot survive in these conditions. The radiation levels would kill them in hours. The atmospheric toxicity should have poisoned them long ago. Maybe they are using advanced protective equipment, suggested Navigator Yondal. For 6 months, constantly, while doing heavy construction work? Dr. Thrennick shook his head. No species has protective equipment that good. Captain Velkoth made a decision that would change galactic history. We are going down there. I want to see these humans for myself. The alien landing party sat down near one of the atmospheric processors. They wore full environmental suits and carried enough air for 12 hours. They expected to find the ruins of human civilization, maybe a few desperate survivors hiding in bunkers. Instead, they found Kim Tae-woo waiting for them. He was not wearing a protective suit. He was breathing the toxic air directly. His skin looked different, tougher, with a slight metallic sheen. His eyes were brighter than they should have been. When he smiled at the aliens, his teeth seemed denser, stronger. "Welcome to Earth," he said in perfect galactic standard. "We have been expecting you." Dr. Thrennick's scanners went crazy as they analyzed Kim Tae-woo's biology. The readings were impossible. Human genetics did not work that way. No species could change that fast. "How are you alive?" Dr. Thrennick asked, his voice shaking. The atmospheric conditions here would kill any human in minutes. They would have killed the humans you knew 6 months ago, Kim Tae-woo agreed. But we are not those humans anymore. He led them through the facility, explaining as they walked. The aliens listened in growing horror as he described what humanity had done to itself. "We realized early that we could not change our world fast enough to save our old bodies," Kim Tae-woo said calmly. "So we changed our bodies to match our world. Genetic modification, surgical enhancement, biological adaptation, we threw everything we had at the problem." They passed a group of humans working on a massive filtration unit. None of them wore protective gear. Their skin had the same metallic sheen as Kim Tae-woo's. Their movements were faster, more precise than normal humans. "The first generation of modifications was crude," Kim Tae-woo continued. "We lost many people in the early experiments, but each failure taught us something. Each death made the next modification better." Dr. Yoon Hae-jin joined them as they toured the facility. She looked even more changed than Kim Tae-woo. Her lungs were visibly larger, adapted to process the toxic air and extract every bit of oxygen from it. Her hands had been modified with subdermal implants that let her work with radioactive materials safely. "We had advantages the galaxy did not know about," she explained to the speechless aliens. "Human medicine was already advanced. Our understanding of genetics was growing rapidly, and we had something no other species has ever had when facing extinction." "What?" whispered Dr. Thrennick. "Time pressure," Dr. Yoon Hae-jin said with a smile that was both beautiful and terrifying. "When you know you will die in 6 months unless you evolve very quickly indeed." They showed the aliens the modification centers where humans voluntarily changed their own biology. Radiation resistance, enhanced lung capacity, improved digestion that could process contaminated food, nervous systems that could function in high-toxicity environments. Each modification built on the last. Each generation was stronger than the one before. "The children are the most remarkable," said Dr. Yoon Hae-jin, gesturing to a group of young humans playing in what should have been a dead zone. They were born after the modifications began. They can survive conditions that would kill their parents, and their children will be even more adapted. Captain Velkoth watched a 6-year-old human child breathing air that would have killed her in seconds. The child waved at her cheerfully and continued playing with toys made from salvaged alien technology. "You have weaponized evolution itself," she said in a voice filled with awe and fear. "We have taken control of our own development," Kim Tae-woo corrected. "For the first time in human history, we decided what we wanted to become instead of letting random chance decide for us." The tour continued for hours. The aliens saw floating cities that processed millions of gallons of toxic water every day. They saw atmospheric processors that were slowly converting Earth's poisoned air back into something breathable. They saw vertical farms growing food in soil that should have been dead for centuries. But most disturbing of all, they saw the humans themselves. Each generation more adapted. Each modification more sophisticated. Each person a living rejection of the biological limits the galaxy thought were universal. "How long before your world is fully healed?" asked Navigator Yondal. "At current rates, 15 years for atmospheric restoration, 20 years for ocean rehabilitation, 30 years for complete soil recovery," Kim Tae-woo answered without hesitation. "But we will continue to improve our methods. We may be able to reduce those timeframes significantly." Dr. Thrennick was taking continuous readings, documenting everything. His scientific training told him to be objective, but his emotional centers were screaming warnings. This was not normal. This was not how extinction was supposed to work. "Your species was classified as terminal," he said finally. "The mathematics were clear. The damage to your world was irreversible. The mathematics were based on normal species behavior," Kim Tae-woo replied. "But humans are not normal. We do not accept irreversible. We do not accept impossible. When the universe tells us we cannot survive, we change ourselves until we can." As the alien investigation team prepared to leave, Kim Tae-woo gave them a message to take back to the Galactic Council. "Tell them that humanity thanks them for their decision," he said. "If they had helped us, we would have remained weak. We would have stayed dependent on their technology and their approval. By abandoning us, they forced us to become something stronger than we ever imagined possible." The investigation ship left Earth's atmosphere in silence. The crew sat stunned, trying to process what they had seen. Finally, Captain Velkoth broke the silence. "Send a priority message to the Galactic Council," she ordered. "Tell them that humanity is not extinct. Tell them that we may have made a terrible mistake." The message that reached the Council 3 days later would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about life, evolution, and the nature of intelligence itself. Humans have achieved voluntary controlled evolution in real time. They are no longer the same species we classified as extinct. Recommendation: immediate reassessment of human status. They have turned extinction into transformation. We do not know what they are becoming. High Counselor Zephys of the Eternal Dominion threw the report across his office. The crystal sheets scattered on the floor, their data displays flickering and going dark. He had read the investigation team's findings 3 times, and each reading made less sense than the last. "This is impossible," he declared to his assembled advisors. "Species do not evolve in real time. They do not choose their own genetic modifications. They certainly do not survive planetary extinction events by becoming something else entirely." His chief scientist, Dr. Morketh, picked up one of the scattered reports. "The data appears to be accurate, High Counselor. 3 separate investigation teams have confirmed the findings. Humans have indeed survived their extinction deadline through voluntary biological modification." "Then the data is wrong," Zephys snapped. "Or this is some elaborate deception. Humans are clever. Perhaps they have staged this entire scenario to gain sympathy from the Council. Stage their own planetary destruction?" Dr. Morketh asked carefully. "Stage the death of billions of their own people? Staged atmospheric collapse and radiation poisoning?" Zephys had no answer for that. Even the most desperate species would not destroy their own world just to fool the galaxy. But the alternative was accepting something that violated everything he understood about how evolution worked. The news spread through galactic networks faster than a quantum transmission. Scientists, politicians, and philosophers across hundreds of worlds struggled to understand what humanity had done. Most refused to believe it. Trade Captain Velketh was among the first to see the truth with her own eyes. Her cargo ship had been scheduled to pick up mining equipment from Earth's orbital stations, equipment that was supposed to be used for strip mining the dead planet. Instead, she found those stations bustling with human activity. "Request permission to dock," she transmitted to the orbital control center. "Permission granted, Captain," came the reply in perfect galactic standard. "Welcome to New Earth Station. Please note that atmospheric conditions throughout the system have been upgraded since your last visit." Velketh docked with growing confusion. The station was not only operational, it was expanding. New modules were being constructed by humans in lightweight worksuits. They moved with a grace and speed that seemed impossible in the harsh environment of space. The human who greeted her at the airlock looked normal at first glance. But as Velketh looked closer, she noticed subtle differences. The man's bone structure seemed denser. His reflexes were faster. His eyes tracked movement with predatory precision. "I am Station Administrator Choi Min-soo," he said with a friendly smile. "How can we help you today?" "I was told this station would be abandoned," Velketh said slowly. "The planet below was supposed to be dead." "Common misconception," Choi Min-soo replied cheerfully. "Would you like a tour? We have made some remarkable improvements to our facilities." The tour that followed would haunt Velketh for the rest of her life. The humans had not just survived, they had thrived. Their technology was a bizarre fusion of salvaged alien equipment and completely new innovations that should not have worked, but somehow did. "This atmospheric processor is 30% more efficient than standard Council designs," Choi Min-soo explained, showing her a massive device that cleaned the air around the station. "We built it from parts salvaged from crashed ships, but we improved the design significantly." "Improved how?" Velketh asked. "We eliminated the safety protocols that limited efficiency," Choi Min-soo said casually. "Council designs are built for species that need protection from their own technology. We modified ourselves to work directly with high-energy systems. Much more efficient that way." Velketh stared at him. "You removed the safety protocols? Those protocols prevent radiation poisoning, toxic exposure, and explosive decompression." "Yes, they do," Choi Min-soo agreed. "But they also limit performance. We decided it was easier to adapt ourselves to handle the risks than to accept the limitations." Throughout the station, Velketh saw humans working in conditions that should have killed them. They repaired hull breaches in vacuum with minimal protection. They worked directly with radioactive materials using only basic shielding. They operated machinery at power levels that would have been considered suicidal for any other species. And they were not just surviving. They were improving everything they touched. Back on her ship, Velketh filed a report that sent shockwaves through the galactic trading community. "Human technology is advancing at unprecedented rates," she wrote. "Their modifications to standard Council equipment result in performance improvements of 20 to 40%. Their own innovations exceed Council capabilities in several areas. Recommend immediate trade negotiations before other powers establish exclusive relationships with human colonies." The report reached the desk of Supreme Trade Commissioner Baxtel within hours. He read it twice, then immediately classified it as secret. If humans were developing superior technology, the Council needed to control access to it before other powers learned the truth. But it was too late to contain the information. Reports were flooding in from across the galaxy as traders, diplomats, and scientists encountered humans in unexpected places. Explorer Captain Jexmiel discovered a human colony on the dead world of Kepler 442b. The planet had been abandoned by its original inhabitants after a volcanic catastrophe made it uninhabitable. The humans had not only survived there, they had turned the volcanic activity into a power source for a massive terraforming operation. "They are using the planet's own geological violence to reshape it," Jexmiel reported in amazement. "They have built their cities inside active volcanic zones, using the heat and minerals to power atmospheric processors. The colonists have modified themselves to survive temperatures that would melt most alloys." Dr. Threnick, the xenobiologist, who had first documented human survival, published the research paper that broke the scientific community. "Impossible Species. Humanity's Systematic Rejection of Extinction Parameters" became the most downloaded scientific paper in galactic history. In it, he described what humanity had done in clinical scientific terms. But between the lines, his horror was clear. "Subject species has demonstrated the ability to direct its own evolution in real time," he wrote. "Genetic modifications that should take millions of years are being accomplished in single generations. The species appears to view biological limitations not as natural laws, but as engineering problems to be solved. The paper included detailed scans of human biology. The changes were remarkable and terrifying. Enhanced muscle density, improved neural processing, radiation resistance, toxic tolerance, and dozens of other modifications that let humans survive in environments that would kill any natural species. Most disturbing, Dr. Threnick concluded, is the species' apparent acceleration of these changes. Each new generation shows more extensive modifications than the last. There appears to be no limit to how far humans are willing to modify themselves to achieve their goals. The paper's publication triggered panic in some sectors of the galaxy. If humans could change themselves at will, what would they become? If they could survive planetary extinction, what could stop them? Supreme Researcher Nex Valon of the Ashanti Collective called an emergency session of the Galactic Science Council. Representatives from every major civilization gathered to discuss what they were calling the human problem. They have weaponized evolution itself, Nex Valon told the assembled scientists. They do not adapt to their environment. They force their environment to adapt to them. And when that fails, they adapt themselves to survive anything. A researcher from the Harmony Federation raised a tentacle nervously. Our psychological models predict that such rapid change should cause severe mental instability. How are they maintaining social cohesion while undergoing such dramatic biological modifications? That is perhaps the most terrifying aspect, replied Dr. Zelandra, who had been studying human behavior since their supposed extinction. Not only are they maintaining social cohesion, they appear to be strengthening it. Their shared experience of transformation has unified them in ways we do not understand. The implications were staggering. A species that could modify itself, at will, that treated extinction as merely another problem to solve that grew stronger under pressure rather than weaker. Such a species could eventually challenge the established order of the galaxy. What happens when they decide our worlds would be better suited to their needs? Asked a representative from the Nixari Empire. What happens when they decide our resources would be better used for their expansion? What happens when they decide, we are the problem? Added another voice from the crowd. Nex Valon looked at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. For thousands of years, they had been the dominant forces in the galaxy. They had decided which species lived, and which died. They had controlled resources, territory, and technology. But now there was something new. Something that refused to accept the rules they had established. Something that grew stronger every time it was challenged. Colleagues, Nex Valon said, quietly, I believe we may have created something we cannot control. By abandoning humanity, we forced them to become something beyond our experience. They no longer need our approval or our resources. 2 years after their supposed extinction, humanity sent a message to the Galactic Council. It was not a plea for help. It was not a desperate request for resources. It was a formal application for readmission to the galactic community. The message arrived at the council chambers carried by Ambassador Lee Boram, who had once been a simple agricultural engineer. Now she stood in the great meeting hall wearing a diplomatic uniform that was designed for vacuum exposure. Her modifications were visible. Enhanced bone structure, improved lung capacity, and skin that could resist radiation that would kill most organic life. The sight of her alive and healthy sent murmurs of unease through the alien representatives. She should have been dead. Her entire species should have been dead. Yet here she stood looking stronger and more confident than any human they had ever seen. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Lee Boram began, her voice carrying easily through the vast hall. Humanity formally requests restoration of our status as a recognized galactic civilization. High Counselor Zephys leaned forward in his seat. Even 2 years later, he could barely accept what he was seeing. The last time humanity appeared before this council, you were a dying species begging for evacuation assistance. What has changed? Lee Boram smiled, and there was something in that smile that made several alien representatives uncomfortable. Everything has changed, High Counselor. We are no longer the species you knew. We are no longer bound by the limitations that once defined us. She activated a holographic display that filled the center of the hall. Images of Earth appeared, not the dying world the Council remembered, but a planet, transformed. Blue oceans sparkled under a clear atmosphere. Green continents showed vast forests and cities that seemed to grow from the landscape itself. Earth is now fully habitable, Lee Boram announced. Atmospheric composition has been restored to optimal levels. Ocean acidity has been neutralized. Radiation levels are within normal parameters. The planetary ecosystem is not just surviving, it is thriving. Veltara, now promoted to chief observer, studied the images with scientific instruments. The EQ readings were impossible to deny. Earth had been completely restored in just 2 years. No known technology could accomplish such a transformation so quickly. How? Veltara asked. We did what we always do when told something is impossible, Lee Boram replied. We found a way. The display changed to show human settlements throughout the galaxy. Colonies on worlds that had been considered uninhabitable, cities floating in the vacuum of space, installations on asteroids and moons that no other species could survive on. We are no longer limited to Earth, Lee Boram continued. Humanity has established 47 colonies in 12 star systems. We have terraformed 7 dead worlds, established mining operations in 3 asteroid belts, and built self-sustaining habitats in environments that would kill any unmodified organic life. Kethmorn of the Nexari Empire stood up abruptly. This is impossible. No species expands that quickly. No technology can terraform worlds in 2 years. You are correct, Lee Boram agreed. No existing technology can do these things. So we created new technology. We developed new methods. We became something new. Chief Engineer Choi Min-soo appeared on the communication screen, speaking from one of the human orbital stations. Honored, Council members, humanity would like to offer assistance to any worlds currently facing ecological or technological challenges. The offer hung in the air like a challenge. The Council had spent years dealing with seemingly impossible problems. The Zilani food shortage, the Corvin plague, the Harmony Federation's energy crisis. Problems that had resisted solution for decades. What kind of assistance? Asked a representative from the Zilani Confederation. Complete atmospheric restoration for toxic worlds, Choi Min-soo replied casually. Biological adaptation programs for species facing environmental pressure. Terraforming, services for uninhabitable planets, technology upgrades for existing infrastructure. Dr. Yoon Hae-jin joined the communication link from her research station. We have also developed solutions for several genetic diseases that affect multiple species. Our understanding of biological modification has applications far beyond human physiology. The Council members looked at each other with a mixture of hope and fear. These were solutions to problems they had struggled with for centuries, but the cost of accepting help from humanity was admitting that the species they had written off was now more advanced than any of them. Captain Nam Ji-woo appeared on screen next, speaking from the bridge of a ship that looked like nothing in the galactic databases. We have also developed new methods of space travel, resource extraction, and habitat construction. Our ships can operate in environments that would destroy conventional vessels. What do you want in return? High Counselor, Zephys asked suspiciously. Nothing, Lee Boram said simply. We are offering these services freely to any world that requests them. Consider it our way of paying back the galaxy for the lesson you taught us. What lesson? Veltara asked. That we cannot rely on anyone but ourselves, Lee Boram replied. That if we want to survive, we must be willing to change. That if we want to thrive, we must be willing to become something the galaxy has never seen before. She gestured to the holographic displays showing human achievements. You forced us to discover our true potential. For that, we are grateful. The Council session continued for hours as human representatives demonstrated technology that seemed to violate the known laws of physics. Atmospheric processors that worked 10 times faster than anything in the galactic databases. Biological modification techniques that could adapt any species to any environment. Ships that could travel between stars without the massive energy. Requirements of conventional faster-than-light drives. But perhaps the most disturbing demonstration came when Dr. Yoon Hai-jin showed the council what humans themselves had become. "This is Park Yoon-soo," she said, introducing a young woman who appeared to be in her 20s. She was born after the modification programs began. She represents the second generation of adapted humans. Park Yoon-soo stepped forward and calmly removed her breathing apparatus. She was standing in the council chamber's standard atmosphere, which was toxic to baseline humans. Not only did she survive exposure, she seemed completely comfortable. "I can process this atmospheric mixture efficiently," she explained to the stunned alien audience. "I can also survive in vacuum for short periods, operate in high radiation environments, and function normally in gravitational fields that would crush unmodified humans. And this is my daughter," Park Yoon-soo continued, gesturing to a child, who could not have been more than 5 years old. "She represents the third generation." The child waved cheerfully at the assembled aliens. Her eyes were noticeably different, larger, more sensitive to light, capable of seeing across a broader spectrum than normal human vision. When she spoke, her voice had perfect pitch and carried clearly across the vast hall without amplification. "Hi," she said in several alien languages simultaneously. "Mommy says you used to be scared of humans. That's silly. We like everyone." The innocent words sent a chill through the council. If a 5-year-old human could function in their atmospheric mixture and speak multiple galactic languages fluently, what would she be capable of as an adult? What would her children be like? Observer Veltara finally spoke the question that was on everyone's mind. "What are you becoming?" Lee Bo-ram considered the question carefully. "We are becoming what we choose to become. For the first time in human history, we are not limited by random evolution or environmental pressure. We decide our own development path." "And what have you decided to become?" Veltara pressed. "Survivors," Lee Bo-ram said simply. "We will never again face extinction because we refuse to change. We will never again be helpless because we accepted limitations as permanent. We will never again depend on the charity of others for our continued existence." Ancient Kolthus of the Primordial Assembly slowly rose from his seat. He was older than most civilizations, had witnessed the rise and fall of countless species. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of billions of years. "In all my time observing the galaxy," he said quietly, "I have never encountered a species that responds to evolutionary pressure by choosing what they become. Most species adapt to their environment. Some species modify their environment to suit their needs. But humans modify themselves to transcend environmental limitations entirely." He paused, studying the human representatives with eyes that had seen the birth of stars. "You do not adapt to the universe," he continued. "You force the universe to accommodate you, and when it refuses, you become something that can survive anything the universe can create." The old being's next words would be quoted in textbooks for generations to come. "You have turned extinction into evolution. You have weaponized adaptation itself. You are no longer subject to the natural laws that govern other species." Lee Bo-ram nodded respectfully. "We prefer to think of it as taking responsibility for our own future." The council voted to readmit humanity to galactic civilization. The vote was unanimous, but not because every member wanted humans back. It was unanimous because no one dared to antagonize a species that had proven extinction could not stop them.